It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show. Today's date is May 13th. This is the C block, the Charlie block, which means we started right around 7:40. We're a little bit late this morning, but we are nonetheless moving forward. John, are you okay, John?
I'm great, yeah.
Okay, I heard something weird there for a minute. I thought.
Yeah, that was my computer. I don't have, it's my computer.
Okay. I apologize. I'm not. See, here's where John is head and shoulders above me in many different areas, but this one specifically. John has years and years and years and years of experience with Microsoft Office, right?
Yeah, that's true. I did it for quite a long time. And I think Teams was introduced probably around like 2018, 2019. So I used it for a couple of years. And then Skype was retired, right, Brad?
Well, it was retired, and you kept making fun of me because you didn't believe I was still on Skype, but I was until Friday. But when I rebooted the computer yesterday, Skype disappeared, and I can't get the Teams thing to work. So I don't know.
And we all started, everybody on Skype started getting messages back in March about how Skype would be going away at the beginning of May, and we should all familiarize ourselves with Teams.
I never got any of those messages, John. I really didn't.
Yep, they were there at the top when you log in. I'm sure you didn't, but they're at the top. They're a default message in Skype starting in March. Every time you log in, there's a message at the top that says Skype will be retired.
John, I looked at the computer.
You didn't get them, Brad. I know. And you know what? We're going to have it worked out before 6:55 tomorrow morning. You
think? You think that'll be done?
I think one of us did it, and I think the other one can do it.
Interesting. Okay. Things to talk about. I was out early this morning, and not bragging or anything, but I'm trying to get myself back in shape. I did my early morning thing and went to the gym. And when I was on my way to the gym, I was listening to 97.1, and Kim St. Aj and Mr. Mark Cox were having this discussion about the ghost state highway patrol cars. You know about this?
Yeah, I had an article about this on my website yesterday, Brad.
If you don't know what we're talking about, they are. This is something that Missouri Highway Patrol is going to start doing, and it's been done by other departments. They have a special. They're not putting the light bars on these cars, and they have a special graphics package. I don't know exactly how it works, something with holograms or reflective areas or stuff like that. But during the day, you can't see that it's a marked car. In other words, if you're looking at the car, you can't see the Missouri Highway Patrol logo on the door and the State Patrol on the front fender, which they had for decades. But at night, when your headlights flash on it, you can see it clear as day. And they're saying they're putting these cars on the road to essentially catch more speeders and to not be identified as police cars by having all the markings and the light bar on the roof and the whole bit. John, what do you think about this?
I think it's great. And so I stand corrected. I had the piece up on my website Sunday, so 2 days ago. And I, of course, have a paywall-free version to it. It's brought to us by Jacob Barker of the Post-Dispatch. Yeah, so the department says that not having the giant, obstreperous, and visible logos will help them monitor, quote, aggressive and dangerous driving. I think it's great. And I think even if you're the strictest civil libertarian, I don't know what a qualm to this would be other than you think that police vehicles should have very ostentatious marking so that your aggressive driving isn't detected, I guess.
Do you know in some states it's illegal for an unmarked car to pull over a vehicle on a traffic stop?
I believe that. Yeah, I could believe that.
And this leads to the fact that, I mean, you and I aren't necessarily that concerned about it, but women, if all of a sudden they see a flashing light in the rearview mirror and they don't really readily identify the car as a police car, they have trepidations about because it could be some creep who's trying to, grab them, rape them, whatever, that kind of stuff. See, here's the whole problem. The whole problem is, and it's sort of like 747s, okay? Instead of them outfitting this special vehicle or special aircraft for Trump, Air Force One, and with the Highway Patrol, just go down to the local car dealership and say, okay, today we're gonna buy 6 Kias, we're gonna buy 6 Chevy Tahoes, we're gonna buy 5 Mercedes Benz, we're gonna buy 5 F-150 pickup trucks, and those are gonna be our new things. And if the state's worried about people saying, oh, it's a police car, they won't have to worry about it because nobody will know that they're driving around in Tahoes and Kias and Hyundais and things like that. You know what I'm saying, John?
I do know now. Procurement experts around the world are having their head spin right now because think of how much. Do you think our good friend Governor Mike Kehoe doesn't know a few dealers that could probably get him a great deal on some cars? And now Governor Kehoe is not the type to do this, but let's say you had an Illinois governor that might be ripe for corruption. Can you imagine how much cash if you just said, we're not going to go through the usual process. We're just going to go down to Jim Bob's auto dealer right there on South Halsted Street in Chicago and buy a couple cars. No biggie.
Can I tell you one of my old police stories, which I've never told before?
Oh, please do, Brad.
I worked for a police department. I put myself through college as a police dispatcher in a department in Illinois. Not going to say which one, but I worked as a police dispatcher. One year, our chief, and this sort of amazed everybody, our chief was not the most progressive kind of guy. Matter of fact, he liked to sit in his office and not do much. And I know he's probably no longer with us anymore, so I can get away with saying that. But he was not a very good leader, so to speak. And there had a lot of ramifications in the department because of that. But one time, he let one of the police officers go to one of these state auctions to look at some used police vehicles. So the officer comes back and brags about the fact that he won one of the state auctions, and this was only the way this worked. It was no outsiders. It was the only people that could bid on the things were government within the state of Illinois. You could be like a muni or a county or whatever, and you can bid on these surplus state vehicles. And he was proud to talk about the fact that he brought back a Dodge Charger. This is back in the day with the 440 Hemi, which would do like 150 miles an hour. And it was an undercover car that was owned by, I believe at the time, the Illinois Bureau of Investigation. And the police officers fought over driving that car because it was incredibly fast. And they used to have the old Kojak light. You know what the Kojak light was?
Is that like a singular light? Would you just grab it and put it on top of the car?
Right. It was like sort of an Easter egg kind of thing. It had a magnetic base on it. If you remember the old Kojak series, he was always riding around in an unmarked car. And when he was time to go to a police scene or something like that, it would plug into it was on like a coiled cord. It would plug into the cigarette lighter, and he'd pop that thing up, had a magnetic base. He popped that thing up the top of the car, and they had a siren in the car, and away they go. Okay, that was what the officers used, and they loved it, and they got tons of speeders because of the fact that and once again, it was not a police spec. It was some car that was bought off the lot on purpose because they didn't want to, run around in a police package, which are readily identifiable. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but if you look at the police package, they don't make the Taurus anymore, but the Explorers, if you look at, they are no longer called Explorers. If you look at the badging on it, they say Interceptor. So,
oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yes, and if you look at the rear badge, instead of saying Explorer, it will see in the lower left-hand corner of the tailgate, it'll say, some of them just say Interceptor, some of them say Police Interceptor, and they typically have black steel wheels with hubcaps. There's no chrome on them. They're sort of basic. And one of the other things is a lot of times now the cars come from the factory with no back seat. Do you know this as well too?
Oh no! Why is that, Brad?
They put in the special police back seat, which is a big molded piece of plastic, which if they get people in the back seat that defecate or throw up.
Or they throw up, yeah, like they're drunks or something.
Right. They can literally take a hose and hose it out. And I'm not kidding when I say this. You can hose out the rear seat because it's not cloth. It's just a piece of plastic, okay? So you can spot them a mile away. But going back to my deal, the cops that I worked with loved driving this car because it was fun. It was a two-door, and it was fun, it was fast, and they could catch all sorts of people like that. So instead of, here we go again, they're going to go with the ghost graphics, but they're still driving police package Explorers. I don't know if they're still making the police package, whatever the Dodge Challengers or Chargers are. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to be stealth, go stealth. I see them from time to time in 44. I don't know what department it's on, but it's a stock-looking F-150 pickup truck. And I've seen him pull over. He must be some kind of a DOT kind of guy or something like that because I see him pulling over tractor trailers all the time. It's a stock F-150. if you sat next to it in a parking lot, you would not think twice about it. You would think it's some construction guy's truck. Now that's stealth. Why can't they be like that? There's no markings on it. It's just white, and he's got the red, the red and blue in the grill in front. They've got running boards on it, and they've got, like a lot of people have lights on their running boards for trucks. They have the police lights in there, the red and blues in there, and it has a couple red and blues in the back. And you have to look at it real hard to figure out it's not really just Joe construction truck. Drive those, And
yeah, I think that, and the legislature likes to go back and fix some previous mistakes. Maybe they could do something with the big crime bill and mandate the Kojak light.
Right. Oh, here, I got the solution, John. See, Brad's always got the solution. How do you slow down people on the interstate? What you do is, instead of buying the Ford Explorers or the Stellantis, the FCAs, whatever they call themselves nowadays, police packages, you buy the Toyota Tacomas, and you put a 50 caliber machine gun bolted into the bed of the truck, and you have a 2-man crew go out on the interstate, and you sit there, and with the guy, one trooper's in the car and the other trooper's manning the 50 cal in the back of the truck, and watch traffic slow down. You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I think so. And you could just, by the way, Steve Butts just texted, and he said he wants one of those for every street in his district. It was amazing. Hey, good news yesterday. Speaking of innovative proposals, Brad, it looks as though with a signature from Governor Keogh that KSHE will officially become the state's official rock radio station. Amazing that the legislature was able to agree on that, Brad. Can you believe it?
Well, the boys in Kansas City won't be happy with that because there's been some...
I know. Like there's what's a popular, or what was in your heyday a popular radio station over there?
And Kansas City was 102.1. I have to talk to my friend that I went to high school, lives in Kansas City. He's been there for a long time, ever since she graduated from Mizzou. And they've had quite a few. Matter of fact, Randy Raley, who's now on KBDZ on 93.1 and in 101.7 in the Westplex, another plug. And I probably get a nasty note from what's the guy's name? Kevy Kev. I'm not gonna tell you because there's 3 versions of him and they all contact you. But Randy Raley worked at whatever that was. It was it KY 102? I can't remember what it was. It was one of the rock stations there, and they still have the Fox KKFX, I believe, or whatever in Kansas City. See, we can get a radio station, and I think people say Brad's being hypocritical. He's always talking about promoting radio, but Brad's going to divert from that right now by saying, we can get a bill signed that makes a radio station official rock station of the state of Missouri, but we can't get IP reform. What the hell's wrong, John?
Yeah, well, also, there was an education bill that was just passed that mandates that boomers have to learn how to use a Microsoft Office account. It was opposed by some guy that used to teach at Logan. He's an expert on TikTok,
John, once again, I was ahead of the curve on that one.
Right. You were way ahead of the curve on that, Brad.
I was way ahead of the curve on that one. John's referring to the fact that I used to be a guest lecturer out at Logan College of Chiropractic. And I think the last time I was there, because after they shut it down for COVID, we didn't do it anymore. I sold the crowd. These were all 20 and 30-somethings who were becoming chiropractors. I said the social media platform to watch out for was TikTok. And one guy says, TikTok? Isn't that the song by KSHE? And I go,
yeah, KSHE's song.
A little bit different. It's TikTok. It's this new emerging. And here's one for you, John. Not too many people know this, but what did TikTok used to be called before it was TikTok? Do you know the answer to this?
Yeah, you've asked me that several times, and I don't remember. It was some kind of was it Musical.ly?
Yes, Musical.ly. And
Musical.ly, yeah.
MUSIC.LY. Musical.ly, wherever the .ly top-level domain is. I have no idea what country that was, but it was Musical.ly. And they switched over to TikTok, and the rest is history. Okay, one last thing to talk about, okay? The what's going on with Ed Martin. And where's Ed now?
Ed is in Washington, D.C.
I know, but what's his official position? He's being moved to, but he didn't get the job as the D.C. attorney. And what's he doing right now? What's did Trump move him over to?
He gave him a brand new role that involves the word weaponization. So I believe Ed is in charge of investigating how the Biden administration used their their apparatus, so to speak, to weaponize the Department of Justice. So if folks go to johncombest.com and they look at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this past weekend, so that would start at the end of the first week in May. And Brad, you and I discussed Ed Martin in great detail on our show last week. Martin would become the department's weaponization working group director, and he would also be an associate deputy attorney general and a pardon attorney. So in other words, he lost the Trump pulled the nomination for him to be AG or U.S. attorney in Washington, but he gave him kind of a consolation role, which would allow him to potentially pardon some folks that were involved in the January 6th tour of the Capitol and, other activities.
Remember when the election was going on and the Democrats were coming out and saying that Trump is a misogynist and he has trouble dealing with strong-willed women? Remember that whole?
Oh, yeah, of course I do.
Don't you find it interesting, all these strong-willed women he has in key positions in his government? I mean, Kristi Noem, you see her with the plate carrier in the head, and the hat, and she's walking around with the ICE dudes, and Pam Bondi, and all these other very strong, intelligent, assertive women. Where did that come from? And he's got a wife who speaks 5 languages. I mean, if he had a wife who sat at home and laundered her doilies that on the White House furniture, I would say one thing. But don't you think it's amazing that these narratives start and you go like, okay, where did they come up with that one from? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's probably because they knew that he was going to go 2-0 against, unqualified women.
And I get what you're saying. 2-0 against.
I mean, he's undefeated against women at elections.
And as Jasmine Crockett said over the weekend, did you read her quotes?
No, what was that? What'd she say?
She was on some talk show, some national talk show, and she was saying that the Democrats are now going to put in a whitey man in because of the fact that they failed twice with women. So the Democrats are going to say to hell with women, we need a whitey man. And she's talking about that's going to be the next presidential contender. It's going to be a whitey man, a whitey man.
Oh, no, I do like the use of whitey. We probably don't use that enough. Like, we describe a Hall of Fame baseball manager as whitey, but we don't otherwise use whitey very often.
Every time I hear her, I think to myself, wow, we should be proud of her. She lived here in St. Louis. She went to school here in St. Louis. She went to, Mary, what?
MICDS, yeah, Mary Institute Country Day School.
I'm an old school guy. I keep wanting to say Mary I or Country Day School, MICDS. We should be proud of her. Don't you think, John?
I think so. I hope that YouTube doesn't get mad for us saying whitey. But Brad, in the same segment, you also used the term police package, and you also said KY. So if anything, I think they're not gonna ding us for whitey.
And I also said explorer too.
And an interceptor too. I wouldn't rely on that though, depending on where she is in the cycle.
John, say goodbye.
See you tomorrow.